You're better than I am. Mahalia, when you had your heart attack, what were you, the really serious one, that first one that put you out of commission for so long, what were you doing at that time? Would you tell me
I was
about
in St. Louis at the Kiel Auditorium, and I was giving a concert there, and in my singing I was demonstrating a certain song. I don't know
What
about
song was that?
tomorrow,
Oh.
but I know who holds my hand today. And it's very, I haven't sang that song since tonight. When I went to make a note, looked like something just clicked like that. And my breath was taken from me for a while. And the doctors at the hospital, when they would give me a test for breathing, they would give me a heart test. So because I was used to handling my voice, and they would make my test harder to see if something was wrong with me. And that night on the stage, by having those type of tests and had taken a heart attack, I didn't know I had a heart attack. I stopped singing for a while, and I nodded to my pianist and to my organist, and they kept on playing until I kind of got myself, and I went back singing and finished the program, and came out of the concert after autographing, came out of the concert, talked to my manager, went up to my hotel room, and entertained guests.
My goodness.
Didn't know that I had a heart attack, and went to bed, got up about something to 9 the next morning, and hit the road, and I began to get coughing spell, just cough. And I began to drink hot tea. Every place we would get, there was a restaurant, I would drink something hot, and it wouldn't stop that coughing. And before I took this heart attack, I had a strange dream, a peculiar dream. I dreamed that in a little room, when I first bought this house, I dedicated to a prayer room of mine. And because I was so grateful that the Lord had given me a home, till I wanted to make that my prayer room, which is my altar. At that time, I kept that one, but upstairs, I keep my sinks and things upstairs in my bedroom. So I used to stay in that room because I wouldn't have to clean up the rest of the house so much, And when I passed, in my sleep, when I passed in this dream, a woman was standing in the room, and she handed me the statue of St. Jude. And I said, what I want with that? She said, here. Well, at the time when she handed it to me, I was fixing to leave in my sleep to go to St. Louis. She said, here, you take this. And I said, well, what I want with it? I said, I'm going away. She said, you take this. I said, oh. She said, you will need it before you through. In my sleep, this is what I dream. And so, I don't know whether I taken it or not. I don't remember whether I took it or not in my sleep. But I know that I went to St. Louis that morning, and I gave the program the next day, and that's when I had the heart attack. And as I said, I didn't know I had it and all this cough and everything. And when I got to Chicago, out to 95th Street, I was trying to make it to get home so I could go to Billings in the morning. Still don't know I got heart trouble. And I began to get like this. It's like I was dying. When I got near Little Company of Mary, I began to get like that. And my parents and all organists got frightened. And they said, Mahalia, you got to go into the hospital. I couldn't pass that hospital. I could not pass that hospital. I was like that. And I got out the car, all the while now, riding for about 6 or 7 hours. It didn't, I was coughing, but I was like that, like I was dying, you know, until I got to that hospital, Little Company of Mary. And so the boy that drives me just backed on up and took me into the hospital. And I walked in there. And I told the doctor, I said, I think I have indigestion. I said, I think I have a pain here. He said, yes. In the meantime, he was sticking me with a needle. And then my pianist, she gave him all the information. And she called my secretary and my husband. And they got out there. And I stayed in the hospital 6 weeks. And then I found out that St. Jude was in that hospital.
No.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
A
ma'am.
statue, St. Jude?
Yes, ma'am. And those nuns would put flowers around there for me. And people would send me flowers that believed in St. Jude would put those flowers there.
Isn't that marvelous?
Because I told them about this dream. Honest to God, this is the actual truth. A woman stood in that room
Isn't that remarkable?
and handed me the statue of St. Jude. And she said, you're going to need it before you're through. And I went through something. Almost 3 years, you know.
Yeah.
And
Well, Mahalia, were the nuns, were the nurses were nuns, or they were just in charge? Did they come in and
the
talk
nurses,
to you when you got better?
oh,
and
they
so
treat
forth?
me so nice. They treat me so. That hospital has never had such excitement in the history of it. They put up a public relation thing there, and the telephones and the mail. The man would bring me in bags of mail, and tell my secretary when she'd come in, she would plaster them all over the wall. The rooms up in the ceilings and down the wall was nothing but letters, telegrams, and you couldn't get in my room for flowers. And I don't like the smell of flowers. It smelled like embalming
Too much,
fluid, and
yeah.
I was sick too. I said, take them flowers out there and put them at St. Jude or give them to somebody sick. But the thing about it that really shocked me as I laid there and found out that St. Jude dreams are true, some of them. Some dreams are true. And so while I was sick, I stayed in the hospital 6 weeks. And then there was a debate on what I had. One doctor said I had a blood clot. The other doctor said I had a cardiac. So I don't know what I had, but after I left, I went back to Billings because they knew the history of the beginning of my sickness, you know. And at that, before I had the heart attack, I had a terrible sickness in 1952 where I had knots all in my chest. And so I went to this doctor that I'd heard a young man speak about how this doctor had saved his father. It was nothing but a nerve that he had pulled out. And that had kept his father sick. So I went to this doctor. I asked for this doctor. And when I asked for this doctor, and they started to examine me, and they saw all those big knots and loads, they thought, it looked like 20 doctors came. They thought I had cancer. So they gave me those radar treatments, you know. And so they gave me about 10. And so they said, well, we don't know what's wrong with you, but one thing, you don't have cancer. See? And
well, Mahalia,
they didn't know what that was. They said
don't?
it was a disease. It was a foreign disease. And it wasn't a disease among colored people. That white people had this disease, not colored. And I remember them asking me one, had I lived around a lot of water? And I said, yes, I live close to the Mississippi River. I used to go out there and drift in the wood that would be floating down the river for wood to have at home, let it dry, you know, and have it to cut up and put it there for to cook with and make fire in the fireplace. So I remember that. And then he asked me, this Dr. Barker at this great doctor, was I around a lot of dust. And I remembered when I was a child that every year my aunt would make me take those moss mattress and wash the moss and stick the mattress and dry it, and the bed would be clean. The mattress would be clean. So that dust went inside of me.
Oh.
See, that dust went
And you
inside.
were probably allergic to it or something.
I don't know without allergic to it, but I know it formed something through the
Isn't that
years.
curious?
See, and this doctor asked about the water and about dust. And then when I was at home, I used to work at the Audubon's Park, where they have the swimming pools, you know. And I used to work in a bathing suit. You understand? So,
At the
I
swimming
suppose
pool.
he was trying to find out, was that some type of TB or something? And so they found that it wasn't. And so I asked the doctor, I said, well, I got to go to Europe. So Dr. Harbour said, you will have a rough trip if you go to Europe. I said, still got strength in my mind. I said, oh, I'm a strong girl. I said, I'll be able to make it. He said, you'll have a rough trip if you go to Europe.